right, let's call this meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everybody. Let's see, we have Corey George. That's first up on the hit parade. Mr. George.
Yeah, just come on up, Corey. I'll just start the conversation. So
Okay.
this is a continuation of our conversation this morning that council had on the CASA grant, and then the funding that supports that office from the general fund. So I put in front of you that spreadsheet that I provided this morning, but since that I've added down to the bottom the total CASA budget. Then that's the new number from the Superior 3 budget that was added this morning, 52,684, and then the Fund 1213, which Corey spoke to about how he thinks the better idea is to separate those two funds. But that's that fund budget, that's the grant budget of 95.7, and then in the commissioner's budget is the insurance and the perf portion for the director. So the total budget for that office is 167,132. Karen had indicated this morning, I think Max asked her the question about how much time she spends down in Union County, which is where we have an interlocal agreement. She indicated about 2 hours, which is 5% of her time. So 5% of the total budget is about $8,300. Currently, they contribute about $4,000. So if you look at the interlocal agreement, you have that copy in front of you as well. This was first signed back in 2010, and it had an annual renewal unless one of the other parties gave 90-day notice to do something different or not renew it, and so on and so forth. So I just simply bring your attention to a couple things. Number one, we're past the 90-day notice to do anything about this now, unless you had some agreement between all parties to come back together. But just to bring to focus on item C. As part of this agreement, Union County shall deliver and pay Wayne County specifically to the GLA CASA Fund 134. I don't think that exists anymore, unless that was a fund, because if you go on and read that, it says, in addition, Union County will pay a match to that grant as yearly compensation of said director. And then it says match funds will also be deposited in that Fund 134. And compensation of the director from these funds will be paid separately from the Wayne County annual salary dispensed. Then it should be dispensed on a bi-monthly basis of the 10th and 25th of each month. And I'm not sure why that was set up that way. It seems to read that the part for Union County would be paid differently than the part for Wayne County. But I don't know what
It kind of sounds that way.
yeah, it does sound like that. So
let me ask you this.
yeah.
There are 31 days in October and December. Today is the 2nd of October. If we take action today, aren't there still 90 days in the calendar year?
Pretty close.
Till midnight.
This was signed the 15th.
15, what's that got to do?
But you have to give 90-day notice to do something different.
90 days prior to the end of the year. I'm just
I
asking.
think it's 90 days, depending on when you start your day. I mean, roughly counting from today, 29 days. 30 and 31 is right at 90.
I guess I'll yield to Ron. I read the 1 year period as
No, it's
from December 15th through December 15th.
no. Go from the term of the agreement, January 1, 2010 is the term. It rolled annually thereafter. The 90 days would be from the next term or the end of the current term, which is today.
So,
So October 3rd would be 89 days, and today.
No, today, the counting starts the day after the notice and ends the distal period of time. So you're going to count from the 3rd through.
So the 3rd is 90 days till the end of the term.
The 3rd counts, yeah.
Okay, the 3rd counts
So
as day 90.
there will be 29 days in October, 30 in November,
Okay.
59, 31 in December, 90.
90. So we could.
Okay, so
You
we
could.
could,
The
if we
answer is yes.
notify tomorrow.
Okay. So the question being, do we want to do that? Is there urgency in revising this interlocal?
So, and to that point, not that it would make a whole lot of difference because their contribution is so low anyway. It's based upon cases, I think. Corey presented this morning again that the fact that the fund had the $282,000 in it, and the budget was $95,000. The income for next year would be the 37.3 and the 4,000 from Union County. All things being constant for the next several years, that fund will run out in 2028 unless something different happens. Because you're going to spend more than you're taking in.
If you maintain that same budget.
Right. And then Corey, I think you were going to check, or you thought that the grant language said that there was provisions that you could spend from that non-reverting fund cash balance.
Yeah, so the agreement that's signed each year with the Indiana Supreme Court, the GAL CASA program, specifically states that any leftover funds that the county receives from the Supreme Court grant at the end of the state fiscal year will be placed in the local GAL CASA fund, which would be 1213 for us, and will be used for the operation and not be routed or reverted to the county general fund. So we do feel comfortable that that money can stay there.
I know it can stay there, but do you have to tell them, for example, let's say this year she wants to add another part-time person, and that wasn't in the original grant application, do you have to get something from the state that says, okay, yeah, I can spend those unspent funds on a new part-time person?
So my interpretation of what I'm proposing, 1213 would move into the fund that's held and managed by county council based upon today's conversation. So my understanding is that would be subject then to the county review process, just like we would any other fund, such as PUF, or any of the money that we would seek approval on. Where before, the way that it was done, it was all just kind of thrown in there together. So because that fund is held locally for the benefit of the program per that agreement, my belief would be that council would oversee that just like they would any other fund.
And so are the uses of that fund then still limited, or is it just the grant amount each year that has restrictions on what it can be spent on?
So yes, to both. So the grant would be bound by the grant narrative that's submitted when you request the money and then approved, which gives you kind of the language and the parameters in which the program would be operated. And then 1213 is the one that we discussed this morning.
I guess the problem, and I think what Jeff's asking is, by transferring it into 1213, are we creating use restrictions that would not exist otherwise?
Right. Does that override our freedom to spend?
Yeah, I mean, because apparently we have, it's not a non-reverting fund that can be used for operations. Well, operations is a pretty broad term, but certainly has a personnel component to it.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I guess I understand that. I don't know that I answered your question well, but the grant application and subsequent approvals and funding would be subject to, Steve's point, would be subject to exactly what's spelled out in the grant and is approved by the state and state budget agency. Then any changes to that, Karen can correct me if I'm wrong, on the grant would be subject to review and approval, like a grant amendment. If it's in 1213, we're back to, if that money is held by the county, I think it would be subject to county review, but that's just, again, my.
But it's also subject to statutory restrictions.
Correct.
Apply to that, because it becomes the local CASA fund.
And so this morning, I believe you said that there was $8,000 in that grant that could go to salaries.
Correct.
Okay, and
To
so.
the director's
is-
salary.
To the director's salary, which is, the rest of them are volunteers, I think, so.
Correct.
No,
So-
there's part-time.
Yeah.
Okay, but.
Union County's all
Let me
volunteer.
finish my question, and then you can answer it. So is it the grant application, the fact that we request $8,000 to go to salaries, that limits how much can go to salaries? Or is there some kind of statutory restriction that limits it? Because, you know, if that's the case, why would we not ask for $20,000 to go towards salaries?
Yeah, so I believe I can answer that, and Karen can chime in as well, as because she's in the weeds of the narrative and the managing of that budget. But the budget is, the amount that's funded to us is subject to the number, or dependent upon the number of CHINS filings per year. So 1 year could be really high, 1 year could be really low. So as we look at the funding of that office, it is a portion of the director's salary to part-time people, then FICA and LTD, and then just some basic operating expenses for that office. So I think the question becomes, what is the priority spending, and or can that be changed? If we have a high year where that number is up, I suspect the answer is yes, there would be more funds that would potentially could be allocated. Karen, if I'm wrong, please tell me. But if not, then I think we're still kind of put in that box, like for 25 is $37,000 or so. This current year, I think it was 60,000 or so.
Yes.
So you can see a big range.
But again, my understanding is we always ask for $8,000 for the salary.
I asked for what, so basically with the auditor's office has always kind of taken my Union County portion of my salary increase along with what Wayne County has done. And so I asked for what would cover that for my Union County salary. And I think that it's very important to note that my grant fluctuates, but also my grant match is matched out of Wayne Superior 3. It cannot be matched with what is in my CASA fund or any new grant. So I think that that's a really important note to make when you're talking about why can't it? Well,
Yes, and so
can't.
looking in from the outside, when we limit the amount that we're requesting for salaries, which is the major part of the program, we have over the years ended up with money then that has accumulated. So now there's what, $282,000 in cash that has very limited uses apparently. And if we were asking for more money in the grant application to cover salary, that there would be less money at the end of the year going into this reserve fund, I'll call it, of $280,000 that has limited ways to use it.
Could I also address somehow how this buildup came? When I originally started, I did not have staff. I had me, and I had volunteers, and that was it. The first person that I hired was my admin assistant, and that was what the bulk of that grant went for, okay? So over the years then, I have my staff advocate, which was originally under grant. Now we've zeroed down, and it is coming from the 1213, which is part of what I'm hoping to spend down. And then I also have a position that's not filled for a recruiter, and their expectation for me is, just quite honestly, I'm applying for the grant that started with, but because I have this excess funds, their question to me is, are you still going to hire this person with these excess funds? My answer to them is yes, because I do want to spend it down. I don't want to overuse the state's money or anybody else's. So I do want to spend it down, but I do need my employees. My employees for me are gold. That is a gold, and there is absolutely zero way I could go back to running this program by myself. It is an impossibility, and quite frankly, I don't know how I did it for as long as I did, because they're gold for me. So yes, do I intend to spend down based on my employees? Absolutely. I will keep them as long as I can, and if that grant fund runs out and I don't have grant funds to do it, I will apply for VOCA grants or whatever I can find to enable this program to keep the gold that I have in its employees.
Right, I'm trying to enumerate just exactly what policy decisions we need to make today. I guess the first one is Union County. I'm trying to determine why we would want to terminate Union County agreements.
I don't think we want to terminate it.
Yeah, I'm
We
not
want to
suggesting-
update
Or
it.
update it to, okay, I wasn't sure what your intentions were on the
Just to update
termination
it,
of the.
so that, because this agreement is, what, 14 years old?
15 years old.
So-
Okay, so you're not ever considering termination of that? Okay.
That wasn't my point. I was just pointing out, since you guys entered into the agreement, you need to know that it's outdated.
It's outdated. You know, and I have a feeling with those citations of bi-monthly payments, back in 2009, Wayne County was on a 24-pay cycle.
Right.
And I think that's why it's outdated.
Just a point though, if what Karen is saying, that she intends, if she doesn't get that other grant for 16,000, that adds 16,000 more to that budget that's you see. So then for the next 3 years, this fund, all things being equal, the fund would run out in 27, not 28, by adding an extra person.
Yeah, I think if I could too, just it's clear the judge is part of the interlocal agreement, and he's not here. During council this morning, I did note that Judge Mark Cox and Judge Matt Cox were going to be discussing this, so how that relates to the commissioners and Union County commissioners, I don't know, but just acknowledging that. And then moving forward, the solutions that I've at least proposed as to the way we budget the money, receive it in, and then follow internal county policies, I think would better align to sort some of this stuff out. Why it's never gone through that county process like some of the others, like we described this morning, I don't know. As far as the management of the fund and the trajectory of that fund, if that's something that more information is needed on at any point, I'm sure Karen can do that. I'm sure Judge Cox would have some vote in that as well. So there's a lot of things that are sort of
And I guess, I think the issue today is, do we notify Union County that we want to renegotiate or renew this agreement? And if we're going to do that, we need to make that decision today so that we can notify them within 90 days.
I think I'd be careful how I word it, I mean, because I think it's I guess there needs to be a modernization, if you will, of an agreement. no question about that. So yeah, we do want to terminate this agreement. I just think it's very clear we want to replace it with another.
Exactly.
And I don't know what the attitude
And
is.
just
Union
update
County. But I don't know that you'd harm your position, and if you make that notice to the commissioners in that context, very clear.
Brad, any thoughts?
No, not really. It's very confusing.
I have a question of Karen. Assuming that you fill the recruiting position, would you anticipate more than 5% of that recruiter's time would be spent in Union County, since Union County is staffing other than your own recruitment, other than your own administrative time? Would you anticipate more than 5% of that new recruiter's time would be spent on Union County recruitment?
That's a really good question. And I will say that Union County also gets some matching grants. So if I got that grant, they do get that grant, and they, in fact, they did one year, I didn't, I think. So I applied for both at the same time, and I think one year that I did get it through Union County. But good question. I think that that's probably valid. But if I needed to adjust it according to what their grant was, then I could. I mean, I don't know. We don't have the recruiting opportunities in Union County that we do here, so it's just a little different.
Do you ever do any interoperability, so to speak? For example, if you had a need in Abington or Boston, do your Union County volunteers ever cross county lines to assist?
They could, yes, they could. And I really don't know that I've ever done that, just because everybody is very loyal to their community. And if I've had maybe a conflict or something like that, I have a beautiful, wonderful volunteer that's been doing this for years. Yeah, she would come over if need be, but she, that I make sure Union County is covered by Union County, and that to me is very fair. But I can go both ways with either or. So if I had Wayne County, someone in Wayne County, I would love to get 100% volunteers in Wayne County. There is nothing that I would love better than to have 100% service by my volunteers, because they are amazing human beings that are come out straight out of our community. And so I would love to get there, but if I had that, they can do both as well.
Those are special people.
They're amazing, thank you, I believe that too.
Am I sensing that one of the adjustments to the agreement would be to request additional funding from Union County?
Not necessarily.
Other than, what kinds of adjustments are you considering, other than just cleaning up the technicalities of this interlocal agreement?
This is the first I've seen this document, so.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
reading through it. I just know that it's 14 years old. Contrary to opinion, I think there's still time for us to say, let's discuss this and update this agreement going forward. It hasn't been revised in 14 years.
Who's your contact?
I would agree with that.
Do you have a day-to-day contact down there, or do you work directly with commissioners, or?
My contact is with the court.
Well, okay, it's Judge Cox.
Judge Cox, or Ashley Kostler, who's his courts reporter, yes.
Okay.
She does a lot of the financial part of
So you
Union
have
County.
an admin person, so is part of their state money going to pay her salary?
No.
How do they spend their extra money?
No, Ashley is Judge Matthew Cox's courts reporter, so no, she does their side on the court stuff. that just whatever the requirements are in the court stuff. So my grant, she sends me the money, if that makes sense. She's just responsible to make sure that I get my money.
So Pat, what do you think should, since they pay us 5% they pay us 5% of what we spend, and it costs us 10%. Do you feel that we should ask for more from our neighbor?
I'm respectfully going to leave the answer to those questions to my judges. I think they're the most appropriate persons to answer that question than me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mary Ann, just to be certain, Union County doesn't pay 5%.
Oh, I thought I heard that.
That was a different figure that
I
Steve
thought you
gave.
said it cost us $8,300.
That's, Karen had said this morning that she spends 2 hours a week approximately down there. That's 5% of the budget. They don't pay us that. They only pay us $4,000.
Well, 5% of her time costs us $8,000, but they pay us $4,000.
Correct.
Okay, well, yeah, basically it was, that Union County costs us twice as much as what we receive, is what I took from this morning.
Essentially, but the issue for me is we're not doing things the way it's written in this interlocal agreement, which is 14 years old. And why don't we just take a breath and say, Union County, we'd like to discuss this, but we notify you that we want to have further discussion about an agreement for 2025. We start those discussions, and we could have something in place, before the end of the year, and we continue operating however we want to operate in 2025. I'm not talking about terminating our collaborative
Okay.
approach to this with Union County.
I just couldn't tell what you were considering. Okay.
I think.
So if I understand you, Jeff, basically you want to give 90-day notice to say we want to not so much renegotiate, but just take a look at this and see if we can tweak it or make it better for both parties.
Let's
Correct?
update it. If we are not doing things that as they're written here, then we need to determine whether we need to change the language or change our process, one or the other. But I don't think it makes a lot of sense to stay in an agreement that we're not following. We're following the spirit of it, but we're not following the letter of it unless.
In all fairness, it's the first time you've seen it. I don't remember having seen it. That doesn't mean anything, but I think to get to the point that it's the process itself that has been working. It's just a matter of maybe having the documentation catch up with the working process,
Exactly.
not necessarily change that process.
Exactly.
Let me just say this, we've all had a lot of contact with our Union County counterparts and others, and I would just hope in the years ahead we could look toward many more cooperative arrangements, interlocal agreements, whatever, with Union County. My true feeling is that Indiana has way too many counties, and that we could experience a lot of savings if there were some M&As, mergers and acquisitions among Indiana's 92 counties, but.
We probably don't want to let that word get out there.
Yeah, I know it's blasphemous, so fire me. I just hope that we both would be stronger if we could have more and more cooperative agreements with Union County. I think we have a good relationship with many departments. I know the sheriff, some years ago, a couple of years ago, saw him. He has said he just so appreciates what Wayne County sheriffs have done in the past. They can't afford to build a brand new jail to standards, and there's so many small counties that cannot afford to build a new jail to standards that are required today. And there are many, many other examples. So our most natural partner in this is a Wayne Union County partnership.
So, with that said, Ron, can you offer some recommended language for a motion that would accomplish what
Well, I
we
think
just talked about?
you move to authorize the president to contact the executive of the Union County Commissioners, advising that we would like to terminate this agreement as it is written, but to maintain the relationship and replace this with a new agreement, hopefully that we could all put to bed by the end of the year.
Before the end of the year.
Let me come back with a question about a conversation between not just the commissioners, but both Judge Cox's,
Well, I think
Judges Cox.
that's happening now, isn't it? I
Yes,
understand.
it is.
So I mean, I think in some respects, it needs to be a coordinated communication. So certainly copy them on that, and then.
Sure.
I don't
It
think.
seems that a meeting of the four, or the five people, or at least the two presidents and the two judges might be most productive.
If possible.
I mean, I feel like based upon the conversation this morning and realigning the management of the funds and the oversight of the funds with this agreement brings us up to a better starting point and we move forward. So I feel comfortable with that. I can't speak for Judge Cox, but I'll let him know the conversation.
Which Judge Cox were you talking about?
Mark, I have to pause every time I say that.
North or south? North
All
or
right,
south?
so do we have a motion to do just that?
Yeah, I move that President Plaster meet at earliest opportunity with the President of the Union County Commissioners to inform and collaborate to update.
You know, I think
Yeah,
we
you need to
basically just
inform
say
in writing, right?
We feel like the agreement itself is obsolete and we wish to terminate it, but maintain the relationship and replace the agreement with one by the end of year.
Right, I mean, but first I think we should inform in writing and then,
Yeah, we have to inform them in writing that
Tomorrow.
we are ending this agreement. It will not automatically renew, but that we will renegotiate and update the
Yeah.
agreement,
and that our desire is to update it because it is indeed.
not to eliminate.
Brad, do you have a copy of it?
I do not.
Okay.
We'll get you one.
Thank you.
But are you supportive of that motion? Do you want to make a second?
I will second that motion.
Okay. So the motion again is to, by no later than tomorrow, notify Union County and copy both judges that our intention is to restructure this agreement and that we intend to have a new agreement in place by the end of the year so that we can continue the collaborative work on CASA between Union and Wayne counties. So we have a motion and a second to that effect. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying, oh, wait a minute, I'm sorry, he's on. Do I need to go through? Okay. With that motion in mind, let me do, let's ask for the vote. Mr. Dwinger, your vote?
Aye.
Mrs. Butters?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Motion carries. So, having dispensed with the current agreement and how we're going to handle that, there's a request on a grant application as well, or are we good?
I don't think you need this, you're not the grantee on this.
Okay, so the judge needs to move that forward. Any other?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I do feel that the commissioners should have at least a brief conversation regarding reduction of hours in your office. Because it doesn't have a fiscal impact, but it is an impact on policy. Because it is currently Wayne County policy to move toward 40-hour work weeks for all of county government. I suggest that we have a discussion among commissioners as to whether the probation department it is appropriate for us to make an exception for the probation department to move away from what has been our policy of moving toward a 40-hour work week. So I would invite my colleagues to speak to endorsing such an exception to that current policy.
So, Brad, for your benefit, at the council meeting this morning, Corey and Karen and Steve and Kim discussed the request, as I understand it, to move from a 40-hour week to a 37.5-hour week. And council, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but council voted to support the position of the judges in that regard, with the understanding that probation office employees are court employees rather than county employees. Ron, do you want to talk about the legal distinction there?
Yeah, there's a lot of hairline distinctions, and I think the point I tried to make, which I don't think you understood, was they are court employees for purposes of the personnel policies under which they're generally governed, that are governed by the court employees manual. They are, that doesn't change the fact they are fundamentally county employees. Otherwise, they would not be eligible for participation in certain county benefits, such as health insurance, what have you. So it's a mix and match, so to speak, and I think I recall there was some consternation when the judges came up with their court employees handbook and among some commissioners, and it was stretching the envelope, but I think at that time the wisdom was that it was none of the battles on language and details here and there were worth the fight. I think the concept is respected by the commissioners that these are county employees who are vested in the operations of the court system to the point where the judges themselves, as the chief officers running the court system, have and need to have the right to control their immediate working conditions.
Including
Hours of work. And you recall, it's problematic because if the judge isn't inclined to keep accurate track of accumulated comp time and you have a termination of employment like we had, we can have significant financial implications.
Which is a policy matter that I think we need to address.
Well, I think we have our policy pretty well here cut out. I think we just have to reiterate our expectation that the judges who have assumed that management role will see to the management, will see to that role being fulfilled in these very significant areas. And that's the most noticeable one because it's the one that's probably had the greatest financial impact in the relatively near term, with employees who have retired with significant amount of uncompensated comp time.
That was what I felt the council was missing, is that they endorsed the concept of supporting whatever the judges decide. I would hope they would have added within the guidelines of county personnel policy. I mean, what if the judges come back and say, we recommend a 28-hour work week? Well, according to our policy, none of your people would qualify for benefits. You know, I just feel that we needed to address that because my feeling is that we certainly, at least I feel, that after your extensive research into how we compare with departments throughout the state, that we need to shore up where we stand versus other departments in such a stressful assignments that your people work under. So I would endorse a 37.5-hour work week, which is what I believe you are seeking. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. And I wasn't asked, and I didn't specify this, but from day one of Kronos, our department has complied with that. We are on Kronos, and for 27 years I've kept a timesheet, so we're good with the time records.
Good deal.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Corey.
You're welcome.
Brad, anything else for Corey?
No, I would definitely, I know this is not new, 37-hour, 37.5 hours, but I really would like to study it some more because at this point, I mean, obviously we got to go with what the judges request, but I would not be behind that.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Corey. Appreciate
Does
it.
that change anything from this morning?
It does not.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, Sheriff Redder.
I have some feelings about 12-hour shifts too. Fire me.
Okay, you got 90 days.
And a half.
90 and a half days.
Good morning.
Good afternoon.
Well, I guess it is afternoon. Morning for some of us. I just woke up.
There you
So, I've got actually two issues. I don't know which one you want me to address first. We have the
Take
mobile
your pick.
command unit, and then we also have the county ordinance regarding the.
Oh, by money?
Yes, by money.
Whatever you want to start with. Go right
Well,
ahead.
let me start with the mobile command unit,
Okay.
and I'll bring these forward. These are just some photographs of mobile command unit that we're looking to purchase. So, I believe both of you were, and I've informed Commissioner Dwinger of the discussion this morning with council regarding the prospect of purchasing a mobile command unit to replace the existing one. What we currently have is a 2004 Hurricane RV that was purchased about 20 years ago, and it was converted over to suit the needs of the sheriff's office and emergency management for a mobile command unit. Over time, we put a significant amount of money into it to maintain it, and the problems with that unit continue because in reality it was never built for that purpose. It was converted into that, and trying to do so with as minimal cost impact as we possibly could. We continue to experience issues with it, and its reliability is becoming very questionable. We currently have over $22,000 in anticipated repairs to bring it up to a usable standard, and that $22,000 does not include any unforeseen mechanical repairs that we may end up having. Sadly, we continue to have mechanical issues that potentially render it inoperable depending on what they are or they have. And again, the reliability has become such a question that even our dispatch center has elected not to use it on a few occasions because they weren't confident in things like the generator operating correctly and so on. So a unique situation presented itself. This past weekend, late in the weekend, one of my reserve deputies contacted me. They had been researching a web auction site or an online auction site that primarily deals in government vehicles and equipment, and they found a purpose-built mobile command unit that is currently owned by the city of Carmel, Indiana. Was used for the Carmel, Indiana Police Department, and they found that it is for sale, or it's on this online auction site. In looking at it, it's fully functional, with the exception of radios and computer equipment, and there are two of the small RV air conditioners that are either not in or not functioning that would need to be replaced. Outside of that, we talked to their service department, and they said everything else functions without issue. The unit itself has less than 8,000 miles on it. It's a 2006 Freightliner chassis with I believe it's a 30-foot cargo section. It's classified as a 30-foot. This is purpose-built. It already has all the lights. It has cameras. It has backup cameras. It has remote cameras. It has emergency lighting. It has scene lights. Everything that we would ever need, and that we've tried to incorporate into the current mobile command unit, but to much lesser degree. Currently, the bid is as of noon, still under $18,000 for this. In discussions with council this morning, they were gracious enough to approve a transfer within my budget of up to $100,000 to be supplemented by commissary money should it exceed that, up to a maximum of $125,000. What I'm here before the commissioners this morning is seeking your permission to move forward with the bidding process to potentially purchase this and put the Wayne County Sheriff's Office, Emergency Management, and our 911 Center into a position that is far better than what we currently have, and really paying it forward, because I anticipate this lasting for us for a couple, if not more, decades. I believe this is an excellent investment, and once in a, I wouldn't say lifetime, but once in a near time opportunity to acquire this.
So, the first question that comes to my mind is probably for Ron and Steve to weigh in on the acquisition process. And so it is an auction. What steps need to be taken to allow the sheriff to bid at that auction?
I guess you have an appropriation with which the purchase can be funded, I think, because basically
He does have an appropriation that
And then-
the council approved spending up to $100,000 out of their one-time
and
line
I
item.
think they gave authority to issue a check from their
From their one-time line item.
one-time funds to be reimbursed when you get a finalization of how the actual purchase price is going to be allocated. So I think that really is all necessary. I mean, he's a purchasing agent. He's got the right to contract. This contract is unique in that it is an auction contract, which the statutes are slowly coming around, have come around to recognize as both a good means of acquiring property as well as disposing of property.
Okay, and so there's no need for us to find that it's a special purpose
Well, no.
purchase or anything to allow that, or?
Well, I think it is. I think the evidence will show that this would qualify as potentially as a unique opportunity if in fact we go forward, because I think the sheriff has done his due diligence as to what the market is.
Right.
I think council already determined this morning that the existing unit is without value, so that's a different issue that gives you latitude in disposing of that. But this issue is, it's in the expenditure, and I don't think forgive me if I'm wrong, Steve, I don't quite have that memorized, but I don't think we talk about auctions per se as in an acquisition in our purchasing policy, but it's a special, I think it's a special procedure that would be allowed.
I do. I think that under the special exception part of it, this is a unique opportunity to buy this, and so it does comply with that.
It's very similar to what Mike's done in the county. So
Exactly.
You're not,
We have
it's not like
experience.
you've got a spec for a new unit. This is an opportunity that you found a used unit on the market that on balance appears to be.
And on the record, you justified why this is the best way to do this. He's indicated it's only got 8,000 miles on it. It's already equipped the way we need to be equipped. It's going to last us for several years, and so the need to find multiple quotes is accepted out in that special purchase portion of it.
And so again, my question, do we need to?
I think you
say
need to.
that?
Well, I think it needs to be stated in the minutes, and I can work with Bobby on how you characterize it, but this would definitely be an IC 522-10 special purchase, and we'd just have to see which section in that chapter most appropriately addresses it, but I think the document, the evidence this morning and what we'll establish today will establish that.
Yeah, I think we just need to have the minutes reflect that we continue to agree that we find the need for a mobile command unit essential, unlike some other counties. And it has proven its essential nature going forward. Also, it's important, I think, to establish that the essential repairs to the current MCU exceed the value that would result after those essential repairs are made, rendering it upside down in value even after, to make it operable, which would basically make the current MCU of little to no value. Therefore, what you have found with the combination of it having greater value than our current MCU and being relatively local, which is always a very important consideration when the highway department buys used equipment, therefore I move that we certainly support the purchase in competitive bidding up to the $100,000 that council has authorized, and with great hope that you can do better than that in competition.
Far better.
Yeah.
Is there a closure time on the bids, or
I'm sorry?
is there a time when the bids shut off?
Yes, sir. Tomorrow morning at 8:30 a.m. Yeah, it is, and I do appreciate greatly the diligence that council and commissioners have paid to me to accomplish this because it was in such short notice. I know that nobody likes to operate under those terms, and I certainly don't either. Chief Deputy Moore and myself actually worked until probably 9 o'clock last night or even later getting all this together.
So you made that in form of a motion.
I will second that motion and concur that this is not anything that we haven't already done with the highway department, so I don't think it's anything out of the ordinary for us.
I did want to add before you take a vote, if you'd entertain. I think Ms. Butters mentioned that you would approve or support up to $100,000. That was just the transfer in my budget. I believe the discussion was the commissary would go supplement that up to 125. I just want to make sure that was understood.
Would you
I'll
amend your
accept
motion?
that amendment.
Okay.
Your commissary money is, that doesn't hurt us. I don't feel the pain when you
Right.
offer commissary.
I'll bear that.
Right, I'll accept
Brad,
that amendment.
Do you amend your second to reflect that up to 125? Okay.
I do, I'll second that motion.
Anything else, Randy, before we vote on that?
No, sir.
All right. Let's take a vote. Mr. Dwinger,
Aye.
Mrs. Butters.
Aye.
I also vote aye. Motion carries.
Very good. I'll keep you informed as to what our progress is.
Thank you.
The second
Next.
item, I'm sorry.
Next, go ahead.
The second item that I have is the consideration for the county ordinance establishing the ability for the sheriff's office to maintain a fund for narcotics investigation and particularly buy money, as it's been deemed, I guess, is the best way to put it. I'd ask Chief Deputy Moore to come up and who may have some additional comments or information, but we're presenting to you, do you have another copy? Presenting to you,
This is the policy.
oh, it's final.
Yeah, well, it's not final,
Oh,
but it's all in one.
I've got it.
Yeah.
County Attorney Ron Cross has been instrumental in trying to help us establish a required county ordinance in order for us to be able to maintain a fund to operate for the purposes of narcotics investigations. And a part of that ordinance and statute requires that the policy be in place that governs the use of that money and accounting of. Here before you to present this policy as our one of our last drafts, most recent draft on this policy. And the only change I could foresee to that would be requirements from our accreditation body or accrediting body that may require some changes, statutory changes, or other possibly federal legislative changes that would affect that.
and there may not be any, but I have prepared the ordinance with caveat that your policy or general order, whatever they're referred to, 603, that you're developing, not final. But when it is finalized, you will provide us a copy, but you will redact anything that you deem to be security sensitive or confidential. And then that way, that'll be made a part of as an exhibit to this ordinance.
So with that proviso, then you're comfortable with the ordinance as it's?
The ordinance is very
exists.
streamlined. All it is a home rule ordinance by the executive body, which is the commissioners, establishing the buy money program. I don't want to assume, but I don't want to mislead the people that are watching on television. This isn't the start of drug enforcement in Wayne County Sheriff's Department. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's been going on. There have been some changes in the methodology by which both the county and the city have been operating. So now there is a need that at least we have this fund created for the benefit of the county sheriff, and that's what this would do, enable the creation of the buy money program.
And this is ordinance number?
Ordinance number 2024-015. No changes at all from that which I think I sent you yesterday, Brad.
Yeah, I got it, and I'll make that motion that we approve this new ordinance.
I'll second it, but I do have a question.
0015, I think. 0015, I believe it was.
015.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Now questions.
Right. I've had some, but not a lot of questions regarding the dissolution of the Joint Task Force, Drug Task Force. We've had no discussion on this. I've, of course, read everything that you have issued publicly, but I'm wondering if you could offer some further examination of that dissolution with the city. I'm guessing that is the reason why we need this ordinance. The establishment of this ordinance is necessary because of the dissolution of the Joint Task Force. Please offer us a little bit of explanation. It hit me as a surprise that this was occurring, so if retroactively you could offer some explanation, it'd be appreciated.
Sure. So, I think the 6-year relationship that we've had with the commissioners and council in my operations as sheriff with the Wayne County government, you've seen that I try to operate and typically do operate with strategic planning. This is something that I have started from the very beginning. I'm constantly evaluating what current conditions are and how effective the strategies that we have in place are and what is best for the current area of operations that we're working in. As things change and they evolve, different circumstances are developed, we have to change our way that we address some of the strategies that we employ in order to be effective. I believe that after looking at all aspects, this was the best way to move forward, and establishing this policy allows us to continue operations without any delays. We've been able to manage to do that on a limited basis with the cooperation and partnership with the Indiana State Police. So I'm not sure if there's other questions that you might have about this, but we continue to operate along with Richmond Police Department. We've offered our assistance in any investigation that they do. Our patrol staff and detectives continue to work together. Nothing's really changed other than the disillusionment of the formal drug task force. We continue to investigate drugs just like we always have. It's just not that we're not sharing collectively in a task force, but we're continuing to help each other investigate narcotics sales.
I guess I just was surprised to learn of it on the street, so to speak, and I'm fully aware, as I know you are more than I, that drug trafficking to have any geopolitical boundaries to it.
Very true.
And I would just hope that the communication and the cooperation would continue. Another concern is that as we continue to receive more and more revenue from the state for opioid settlement distribution, our desire is to be more and more cooperative with other municipalities, with all cities and towns in the county, continuing what we've done with other police agencies in the county this year, with the formation of an advisory council of city and county people. So we would hope that that would be compatible with your ongoing spirit of cooperation with the city of Richmond.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I want to reassure you and as well as the listeners and our citizens of Wayne County that we continue to investigate narcotics just as vigilantly as we ever have. In fact, we've increased, the Wayne County Sheriff's Office has increased the number of officers, deputies, detectives, whatever their particular assignments are, than what we have had historically. So I think it's important to know that that my pledge as I came into office initially was to address the drug issues with the best ability that we currently have. And I believe this adjustment in our strategies reflects that, at least it is in my opinion.
Good to hear. I just wanted to hear that. Thank you very much. I appreciate the time.
Very much so. And I think your consideration of assisting the other agencies in Wayne County with that is spot on, and I appreciate that because we all work together and we all benefit when we can help each other.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
Just wanted this little check.
Absolutely.
Okay, 3 copies? All right. We vote on this? Okay. Let's vote on ordinance number 2024-015. Mr. Dwenger,
Aye.
Mrs. Butters,
Aye.
Mr. Plaster also votes aye. We've unanimously approved that ordinance. We've got 3 copies to sign. What else have you guys got for us? Anything?
Believe anything else?
Why don't we
Let me
deal
then
with-
ask you on a couple of issues with respect to quotes on the drones and on a potential new x-ray machine for the courthouse. Maybe Alan, are you going to be handling those? Could you get with Steve and make sure that everybody's clear on what kind of quotes we need? And we've allocated some money under opioid settlement for the drones. We've kind of initially penciled in, hopefully, in the ARPA funds that we have available for security to look at a new x-ray equipment. So if we can move forward with those quotes, we can move the ball forward on
Yes,
this.
on the x-ray device, that we need to have those quotes and be in contract before the end of this year, correct?
Correct, that's correct. And again, we'll have to meet again to decide with the monies we have available for ARPA. There's a few other things security-wise that we're looking at, but how do those all fit together? We may need to look at coming up with additional funds from other sources, but we want to move that forward this year. If you can work with Steve, we'll get that all taken care of, hopefully. Okay?
Absolutely.
Great. Was there something else?
Yes, while you're here, the Faith in Blue utilization of Expo Hall.
Yeah.
And is that you or Aaron's the one that called me?
Maybe
Aaron, do you want to come up? Or
As long as we're
I think,
in your arena.
I don't know how.
I think, although Aaron is well, hopefully be the commissioner-elect.
I'm premature. We're not firing Mary Ann.
I'm working on getting fired.
No.
He's trying.
But he also, but Mr. Roberts also is a chaplain for the Wayne County Sheriff's Office. And he has been instrumental in helping me organize a Faith in Blue event. This is a nationwide event over the weekend of October 11th. It's 11th, 12th, and 13th of this month, which we are participating in. And every county and every municipality participates in a different way or different level. This year we've chosen to do a couple of different things, and one of those is to organize a dinner which has been sponsored for all law enforcement in Wayne County. All law enforcement are invited to attend along with their families. And we've sent out invitations for them to do that, but we would ask your permission to utilize the First Bank Expo Hall in order to host that as the venue for that event. So I don't know if you have anything else you want to add.
I just really appreciate any consideration on that. This is a great event that, like Sheriff Ritter said, that is a nationwide event. This is the 5th year for this weekend. It's always the second weekend in October, and it is very important that pastors and churches and law enforcement get together, because we need each other. We truly do need each other to continue on, not just for the officers, but for the people we serve and everybody involved. So we really appreciate anything you can do for us. This is, like the sheriff said, this is a free free meal for these officers to come out with their families and just spend some time with some local pastors, and just a good time of fellowship and a good time to bring those two groups together.
And again, it's October 11th.
Yes, sir.
The request is to use the First Bank Expo Hall at no charge on that date, that evening.
Yes, sir.
I would just like to point out that the energetic folks from the Boys and Girls Club will be setting up tables and chairs the previous evening, and they'll just leave them in place so there won't be any labor associated with this event, so the out-of-pocket expense will be really non-existent for the fairgrounds personnel. And I do feel that this is a very important wellness event for law enforcement personnel at a time when that is a valuable contribution, and I feel that this is a contribution that should be made by the county. So I move that we allow this event to occur at no cost to the organization.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Brad, any further comment?
No, I just think it's a great event, and hopefully it's well attended, but I have no problem at all with it.
Absolutely.
Probably use this.
I agree 100%. With that, if there's no further discussion, let's take a roll call vote. Mr. Dwinger?
Aye.
Mrs. Butters?
Aye.
I vote an emphatic aye. Motion carries. Have a good event. Thank you very much for coordinating that.
Thank you all
Thank you.
again.
You bet. Okay, thank you. We are only about 55 minutes behind schedule, so I think 50 minutes of that can be attributed to Mrs. Butters trying to get fired before
I'm working on it.
trying to merge with Union County.
Can the governor fire commissioners? I forget.
I don't know. You're going to try to find out?
Not like the mayor of New York, right?
Probably not. Mr. Cross, what else do you have for us? We've kind of whittled away
I sent you
at
a
some of your things.
draft letter yesterday. This is actually a hard copy signed letter advising of my conclusions that the pending claims for monies that have been forwarded from a much delayed Medicaid settlement between healthcare providers and former patients of the Wayne County Community Health Center. Those monies, in my opinion, are subject to the assignment that was done at the end of the WCCH's service as one of the co-applicant entities of the former FQHC, Federally Qualified Health Center, and they're asking either, I believe they're entitled to them. We had some issues come up with monies that had to be paid by the county to satisfy a demand from URSA, roughly almost $48,000. Well, I wish I could say there's a legal basis that we could recover those. I can't find that there is one, so I think in the interest of bringing what I hope is closure, unless it took 7 years to settle these claims, I guess you could never know, but that is what this letter is documenting for the file and for your files. Get one for Brent or for Robert. And I think you can, no action necessary other than when you consider the claims today. You can, I think those are going to be in for approval, are they not?
They are. And so, yes, I asked Mr. Cross to take a look at these dollars and determine whether there was any way for us to reclaim the expense from 4 years ago. His determination, as he just told you.
I do need to extend a big thank you to Kathy Williams, who basically did the legwork on this to go in the auditor's office, dig through the files, and basically reconstructed at least the cash positions of the relative accounts.
Right.
It's a little unclear who failed to file the report, and that's really kind of it's an inconsequential fact because at the end of the day, the legal responsibility was on Wayne County, the auditor's office as the fiscal agent of the grant. So whether, as I think I know the situation was such that I would not ever criticize the former auditor for not doing it, because the information exchange was far from what we all know should have been, would have been, how it ought to have been. Be that as it may, because of the fact that the EIN number that was used for that Section 330 full lookalike, or not full, standalone grant for the FQHC that was operated was that of a defunct county entity. The URSA always viewed, and they never really, I don't know, think ever understood, as you recall all those conference calls we had.
I absolutely recall.
They never understood the dichotomy between the health department and the Wayne County government. But be that as it may, the county was, and the auditors was the ultimate responsible fiscal officer, so that those monies were paid pursuant to the demand that they be returned by URSA that was submitted in the spring of 2022. That resulted in the county having to come out from the general fund with about $48,000 that was necessary to fully honor the demand for returns. So it's history and another lesson learned, but I think at the end of the day, both the former and current FQHCs are serving their constituents quite well. And that's the important thing.
Any further questions for Ron on that question? If not, let's move on. What else have you got for us?
Okay, I have looked at this lease, and I think I need to get a comment letter because I just didn't have time to do it between the morning session and this afternoon for the tower. The main issue is one that we talked about and council indicated they support, and I will just offer them to tell us. I'll give them a couple of options, and they can't be naive to these issues as active as they are in the business.
Right.
Offer the language they're comfortable with, and I'll take a look at it.
Okay.
The rest of the cleanup stuff is pretty inconsequential.
Okay, so you will get a letter to them this week, or?
I will. I don't even have any contact information with them, but I'll get it
Okay.
to Stephen Barry, I think.
Okay.
Is there language in there that gives us access to that tower?
Well, basically, we own the tower, and we
Well-
have to give them access to a non-exclusive easement.
Remember, there are 2 towers that we will be using. And so this is just the lease where we're leasing ground to them to put up a tower.
Yeah, I'm not even
at the
talking
highway
about the other, I
location.
mean, you know,
Okay.
I don't know what.
Okay, so we'll be the leaseor will be able to access our equipment at that tower. It's the other tower that's the issue.
All right, okay. So we'll need to,
And that, have you located a site for that yet?
they have, in fact, my understanding is they have entered into a lease agreement with a private property owner for a
And
tower
I
in
think
the
that,
northwest area,
that template you
northeast
had
area.
was the template they used for that.
I don't know, this is not even filled in. This
Okay.
is blanks. I mean, I
Barry
don't-
said he
I
would
couldn't
get
tell
that
you
to
what
me,
the
so.
rent
Okay.
I have a question. What if the tower on our property becomes very popular for rentals from other organizations and it becomes cluttered with all kinds of satellite dishes and stuff? Do we stand to have a windfall out of that, or?
In the sense that our rent for the use of the tower will go down as they get more clients using the same tower.
How many other towers are going to be involved in this?
There's two.
relationship? Just
There's
a total
one,
of two?
one on our site, and then.
So basically, our rental revenue goes to offset our lessee obligation to be a recipient of services on the foreign tower.
Right.
Correct.
But I'm thinking, because of because of that tower's proximity to I-70, and who knows what else could happen, I'm wondering if this agreement could be written in such a way that it wouldn't just reduce our cost, but why should we not be able to enjoy some revenue from that if it is wildly successful?
I'll look at it and see it.
Well,
The definition
I don't
of
think,
wildly
I
successful.
understand what you're trying to say,
I'm
but.
not a want
I
to be
don't
greedy,
think
but
I don't think the odds of that's gonna come to fruition, because remember in my report, we identified, 39 other towers within 3 miles of that location. So I don't expect it to be a real popular tower for co-location.
I've been looking at towers around America since, I'm sorry, I just got back from Seattle. And some towers are really popular out there. And I just imagined a day when maybe we could have a very popular tower. Who knows
It's
what's
possible.
going to come to pass? We could have a new plant.
And we can look at that as we get into that operating contract with them. This is simply for the,
Steve, we probably
Use
haven't,
of the
I don't know if
land.
Mark even is aware of this, but the auditor, typically will this be taxed as leasehold improvements?
I've already asked, the assessor's checking that.
Okay.
I've asked that of him.
Because there's a little vagary in their language of tax allocations. It says we're paying the real estate taxes, but if it's taxed as
Correct.
improvements to real estate,
Yeah, I saw that same thing, and so I've asked Tim to,
well, I'll get a letter of my comments as to the general template. I think the devil will be in the details of how they finish it and complete it out, because there's a lot more.
and so it says that we will pay for
Well,
any
example.
real estate
No,
taxes.
it's unclear.
So you'll ask that question as you respond to them?
Well, I'm just going to, it's a tax, tenant shall be responsible for any taxes, including personal property taxes, that may be incurred as a result of the installation or operation of the equipment at the leased premises. Well, as far as I'm concerned, you get in the paragraph there. But the very next sentence says, landlord, which is us, shall promptly pay all real estate taxes and assessments against the property. The property is defined as the premises, inclusive of the apartment properties. So it just needs clarification. But I think the real issue is how's it going to be assessed.
Right.
And I don't know if that's a function of just the assessor's discretion or if
it is.
it is, they don't have to, he doesn't have to have the acquiescence of in this case, the tenant. Okay.
Yeah, the personal property will be assessed regardless,
Right,
Yeah.
that which is personal, but
Right.
the
the real estate.
tower itself is very much
And
what
so-
I would consider a fixture.
Are we actually receiving money? Will we actually get money or is it just offsetting?
It's offsetting the lease.
Yeah, so,
Our lease.
and that's how I explained it to Tim.
Well, and I think that would require consulting with the auditors. I want to make sure that his office has a sufficient paper trail of transactions both ways, so that there's adequate accounting.
Okay. Brad, any questions?
No, I think I'm good.
Related to that, you mentioned that you've been in negotiations with possibly bringing the cost of updating our emergency communications. Could you enlighten us about your very quick reference to that in this morning's council meeting? That you have some maybe glimmer of hope for bringing the cost down for upgrades?
We are, Ritter Strategic Services is looking at alternative ways of providing the equipment that would not be buying them all from Motorola, that would have a lower cost investment. So one of those things is to potentially, for the building that would house the equipment under the tower, looking at buying refurbished used buildings that are kind of modular buildings that are, and so instead of buying a new one through Motorola, we'd look at buying our own from a used dealer. And there are other things like that involve the equipment. Whatever equipment does not have to be Motorola to make it function properly, we'd look at that as alternatives. So he's supposed to be coming back to the workshop with a new estimate of what the reduced cost. Remember, his initial cost using Motorola equipment was $3.7 million.
Oh, I remember that,
So
yeah.
that will come down. I don't know how far. He thought he could get it down under $3 million. So that's a significant savings, but we'll see what his number is at workshop. I think that's what he said.
I wanted to talk to you more about that before I call this commissioner in Pennsylvania, because what kind of Motorola equipment does have competition? Because we keep hearing over and over that Motorola has absolutely no competition, and now all of a sudden we learn that they do have competition. So
Correct.
could you be more
I
thorough?
can't, that's why we hired a consultant, because I'm not an expert on
I mean,
on
that
radio
consultant has been saying that they have absolutely no competition, because when I was in Seattle, the Butler County, Pennsylvania commissioner, who's had his hands full in recent weeks, but anyway, the adjoining county was shocked by Motorola's quote on equipment, and so they, had to dig around, but they found competitive equipment at half Motorola's price. And so when they informed Motorola that they had found a highly competitive bid, all of a sudden Motorola cut their prices in half.
Well, I think that's what Ritter Strategic Services is attempting to do.
Okay, well, I have this commissioner's number. I just wanted to get a little more meat to discuss. And if this commissioner has some... Yeah, I'll call the commissioner, and if he's willing to share some of his negotiating strategies, I'll pass them on to there.
Absolutely.
Because I wasn't surprised to hear that. I kept thinking that, yes, Motorola has competition, but, granted, they do not have the reputation and all that sort of thing. And maybe they have a better warranty. Who knows? But anyway.
Okay, Ron, what else have you got?
Just, maybe you were going to deal with it, Jeff, an FYI that we're looking at doing a declaration to allow mainstream fiber networks to perhaps utilize sources of funding to expand broadband into our county areas.
Correct. So the Wayne County Broadband Task Force has been approached by a new provider in this area called Mainstream. They are interested in applying for funding through the BEAD program that's providing close to $900 million of federal funds to the state of Indiana, which will be dispersed through this BEAD process, where essentially, internet providers are bidding on what they can do for what subsidy from the state. So this entity in particular is interested in western Wayne County. They have a $13 million project, of which they're requesting $3 million from the state. They would put in $10 million. They're not asking for any funding from Wayne County. They are asking for a letter of support, and they're asking for us to put in place an infrastructure development zone, which is a relatively new process for the state. I gave the code site to Ron.
I've got to do some homework, but there's certain findings you have to make. I just want to make sure that there's, you know, a justifiable, it doesn't have to be scientifically established, but you need a database to establish your findings.
Essentially, my understanding is it would provide a tax benefit. They would not pay property taxes on their equipment, their fiber that they're installing, their poles if they have poles, and there would be no cash transaction, but that's what they're asking us to provide in the way of financial incentive. And we could do the same for any entity that requests that of us if
As
we
long as
do
they're
it
in
for
the
Main
district.
Street.
So how would you, there's some details I got to look at.
Exactly. And I need for you to look at them because I don't know all the details. But it's a relatively short time frame. They are asking us to make a decision by the middle of this month.
Oh.
That because their applications, the final application to the state is due before the end of the month. I want to say the 18th of the month.
Yeah, I keep getting
About 2
emails
weeks.
about the deadline approaching.
Right. So we'll need to look at it relatively quickly. We're trying to determine whether Charter is going to be applying for any money and wants to us to do anything for them. There are a couple others that are going to be expanding outside of Richmond, not RP&L, but I think Frontier and maybe AT&T have talked about expanding in the county. So all of that is part of this BEAD process, and it should happen very quickly. So the first step is to get Ron to tell us what we can and cannot do, and we'll go from there. But I don't think writing a letter of support, I think we could write a letter of support for anybody who is
If they're
interested in
legitimate,
applying.
not scammers here.
Obviously. So they're looking at expanding in the areas that are not already covered, primarily the unserved and then underserved areas of Wayne County. And in the case of Mainstream, it is the western half of Wayne County.
Great.
So,
Any idea how many
Yeah,
miles Main Street?
I'm sorry, Brad?
I had a question. So you said this has to be some kind of what was the zone that you needed?
It's
You said
called
Infrastructure.
an infrastructure development zone.
So is that something that has to go through our planning approval and zoning to get that
No,
changed? or-
it's not got anything to do with zoning. It has to do with essentially designating an area as an area where a utility would not be subject to taxes if they're making an investment.
So why weren't we asked to do that,
3 months ago, 6
Yeah.
months ago, I don't know.
or I mean with the prior company?
I have.
Because they're not
no earthly
tax
idea.
exempt.
Correct. No, this would only apply to for-profit businesses. So Charter did not ask for it.
Oh.
And this is the first company that has asked us to do it. So I don't know why. Maybe they feel it's not worth their effort. They're so big. having to keep track all across the country. This is an Indiana company that is currently in
Yeah, they were formed in Nashville.
maybe a dozen counties.
And
They
then
got started.
then they were
around
acquired.
here.
So every tiny savings counts to them.
I would expect so, yes, in their business model.
Now, when you say Western Wayne County, does that go all the way to Milton, to Dalton, or?
That it's all of Western Wayne County, although it's not every road. It's
Yeah.
not in the towns that already have access, but
Well.
it's in the rural areas.
Oh, that's
And it
exciting.
won't cover everything. I want to say it was 1,800 or so underserved or unserved locations. And then they would also be able to, since they have to establish a network of fiber, they would also be passing other homes and businesses that maybe already have access to something, but they'd be able to offer an alternative, competitive alternative.
Does it go all the way east to Martindale Creek? Jacksonburg Road?
It actually does.
Oh, all right.
It
That
actually
seems
does.
only fair.
That's the first one.
I
And
wasn't
so-
gonna say Jacksonburg, I was
I
gonna
know, I know.
Perry Township,
Yeah, it does.
Martindale Creek.
It-
All right.
It covers essentially all of the underserved and unserved locations in the western half of Wayne County, as I understand
Oh,
it.
that's great.
So we'll see.
So Dalton, Perry, Jefferson, Clay,
Yeah,
Washington,
there's
Jackson?
quite a bit.
Oh, boy.
Um, We'll see. It's again a $13 million project, and we'll see whether it pans out. They may or may not be accepted into the BEAD program. It just depends on who all applies
Well,
and
let's
how
have
it's
them.
parsed. And there's even though there's close to $1 billion, it's still a limited amount of money for the entire state. So we'll see how that's parsed out. The state's first criteria is to get money to unserved and then to underserved. So my home apparently qualifies as underserved but not as unserved. So it's a complicated formula, and over the last 6 months, providers have been arguing and challenging each other back and forth about what sites are served, what sites are not served, which sites are underserved. So we'll see how this all shakes out in the coming months.
What's your
I'll keep you
upload
posted.
score? It's close to
It's really low.
unserved, yeah.
It's really low, but officially it is above the 2510.
But it
but
barely
it's just
registers.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
So we'll see how that plays out. Ron, anything else?
Nothing.
Okay, any questions for Ron? If not, let's move over to Mr. Higginbotham.
The only thing I have is just the report you heard this morning, just a couple little notes on it with respect to the elevator study and the landscape and hardscape. LWC should be here next week for you to further discuss those and narrow down that scope.
Okay. And so, going to the elevator for a minute. If I recall, there was the new elevator. If it goes to just the 3 main floors, it would be roughly $800,000. If it goes to all 5 floors, it would be about $1.3 million. The renovation to the existing elevator would be $400,000. If it's completely taken out and a new car and tracks and everything put in, it was $800,000 in round numbers. And so I think one of the things we'll need to decide next week is what are we going to recommend that we pursue. And I think the more I've thought about it, the more I think that having a new elevator that goes to just the 3 main floors and could become the visitor elevator,
Public
if you will,
elevator.
the public elevator. And that would be a nice elevator kind of used for that purpose. And then not having to go to all 5 floors, the cost would be $800,000, the estimate, I should say. And then on the current elevator, it goes to all the basement to the attic. That could be one used primarily for freight and for prisoner movement, going from the basement up to the courts and so on. And that could be at the 400,000 rebuild level, which would make it a total of about 1.2 million
For the,
for the new elevator and refurbishing.
oh, combined for
old
the,
elevator.
but it doesn't have to look good and it doesn't have to.
It wouldn't have to be,
And it would require a key.
improved. I think that makes sense to have a key use unless the other one is inoperable.
Yeah.
In which case, we'd have to use that for the public elevator, so we'll,
But it would have the same weight limit that it has now. It's not like we would
Correct.
downgrade its
no, not
capacity.
downgrade, it would still have the same.
Now, you said basement through 3. I think it ought to go to the attic too.
It
because-
does.
Okay,
The old one,
yeah.
the old one
And it
would
would
go
still
from
go
basement
to,
to attic.
to the attic. Okay,
Correct.
you just said 3,
Correct.
okay.
No, the new one would just be 1, 2, and 3.
But
Just
the old
3
one would
floors.
still
Old
go
one would
basement to
5.
attic.
Yeah, basement
Because
to
we've got
attic.
heavy stuff up there.
Exactly. So, one of the possibilities might be that when we put this out for bids, that we bid the new elevator 3 floors and then bid an alternate of the old elevator rehab. And at least even if council doesn't agree with doing both things at once, at least we would have a more solid number, so that we know if we're gonna do it now, can we pay for it? If we decide to put it off for a year or 2 or 3 until it finally breaks down completely, we at least have a more solid number. Obviously, it'd have to be updated over time, the longer it takes, but if we can, I'd be in favor, I think, of going ahead and doing both now and getting them out of the way. Obviously, that depends on what the final bid prices are and getting commissioner recommendations in line with council on funding priorities.
That's where I was going this morning as we were discussing it at the council meeting. It'd be a shame to, be able to affordably make the old elevator operable, even if we have to have some local tool maker make parts. And we've done that before, I guess, and we can do it again, and it's too valuable to give up. And I just would like to say, I don't know if Brad spent time in the attic, and I think you've been up there enough. Given the space and what I consider to be absolutely elegant space up there in the attic, I believe that space could be, not all of it, but maybe 1/3 to 40% of it could be absolutely elegant office space at some point. It is absolutely beautiful.
I don't think it was designed with that in mind in terms of the.
It would have to be sprinkled and,
Oh, I know, it wouldn't be cheap, but it's cheaper than new
you know,
construction.
manual exiting. It wouldn't be cheap.
And it wouldn't have 14-foot ceilings. I mean, they envisioned, these elegant high ceilings, and I think today people have learned they can work in these squatty 8-foot ceilings. But with the woodwork and all that sort of thing up there, it is just spectacular.
That's all I have, Jeff. And
That's all you have?
yes, may I take off? I got an appointment to go to.
Yes, you
Yep.
may. Thank you. Is that why that's all you have?
It is. I'm going to be late, I think.
All right, all
Oh,
right.
no.
Drive carefully.
I know it.
You mentioned, Jeff, that you wanted to discuss our claims policy, whereby claims are not automatically paid until we say they can be paid. I applaud that a lot, given this last week when we found a claim was on the brink of being paid if we hadn't got it. And I've scoured this new sheet. Unfortunately, the date claims are prepared, it never appears on there, so you don't know what
Right, how long
generation
it's been,
of
yeah.
you're looking at. I think it's been reworked so that claim that we looked caught is not on this docket.
It is
so.
not, it is not, it's been removed.
But how about the well care claims?
The well care claim is in there,
Okay,
at least I've been told it's in there. I didn't,
Both of them are supposed to be in.
yeah, I'm pretty
Okay.
sure I saw them. It's
Okay.
like 64, 65,000,
68, I think, and
something like that.
There's a
thousand.
couple of
Okay.
them.
Yeah, there's more, there's 2 claims, I think, that total
Okay, and,
68.
you know, the reason I asked Linda if this was the first time or have there been other claims paid this year is because sometimes I don't see claims until they're put in front of us on Wednesday.
Right.
And, you know, I can't pay attention and proofread claims
Sure.
and go over claims at the same time in a meeting.
Well, and I think it'll take a little more investigation and research as to what would be the potential repercussions if they're not automatically paid on Wednesday, but I think it's something that commissioners need to look at, discuss, you know, because I'm not sure that we actually need to pay claims every week. We do because we meet every week, but you know, other counties don't. And
We're the
they
exception.
don't seem to have any real challenges. So I think looking at the process, obviously we don't want payments to be late, and some of the things like utility payments, by the time they come in and they're reviewed by individual offices and then come back to us, it's very tight to get them paid, but I think it warrants reviewing the whole process with the auditor's office and see, you know, where we could be and potential modifications to our process to make things flow a little more smoothly and not have hiccups of, well, wait a minute, you don't want to pay that, but it's already in the works, and you know, those kind of things. So
I recommend we take this up with the auditor after the budget process is out of their hair.
agreed. I think they would agree with that too. Brad, any thoughts on that?
No, I think, let's wait, but I would like to see us have the claims before us before they're paid.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, payroll being one exception, and maybe utility bills that are facing late payments.
Right.
Because it could be a huge late fee.
Okay. Speaking of which, why don't we pay the claims?
Okay, I've been scouring for well care and AWL. Trying to pay attention and it doesn't work. Okay, move for approval of claims, regular claims dated today, October 2nd. Claims dated last Wednesday, September 25th, and jury claims dated September 25th. Quarterly payroll deductions dated September 23rd. Boston Mutual quarterly payroll deductions dated September 23rd. State and local payroll taxes dated September 27th. Riverboat revenue sharing, which I think might be of interest to citizenry. The city of Richmond is receiving $70,854. Wayne County government is receiving $42,413. So there must be some gamblers out there, and Wayne County is receiving quite a lot. So a total, with all municipalities receiving at least a few $100s, is $132,115. So good luck, gamblers. Dated September 19th. Also, a juvenile detention claim from Hamilton County dated September 25th that had to be researched. Per federal payroll taxes and HSA distributions dated October 4th. Done flex and garnishments dated October 4th. And payroll dated October 4th. Move for approval of all of these.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Let's have a roll call vote. Mr. Dwinger.
Aye.
Mrs. Butters.
Aye.
Mr. Plaster votes aye. Motion carries unanimously.
I also move for approval of Commissioner minutes dated September 18th.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion? Oops, sorry. Let's do the roll call vote. Mr. Dwinger.
Aye.
Mrs. Butters.
Aye.
Mr. Plaster votes aye. Unanimously passed. Anything else? Okay.
You want to discuss the county mergers and acquisitions?
I think that's a tad premature.
Okay.
Bobby, what do you got for us on bridge fund transfers?
This morning, the Bridge Department had requested transfers from the council. They approved them. We just need approval from the commissioners. Do you want me to run
For
them?
transfers?
Yep. Where the bridge had come in under our budget, so we're transferring that money back into the bridge fund from the individual bridge.
Okay. And that requires commissioner approval?
Yes.
Okay.
Move for
I'll make
approval. Oh, you want to do it, Brad?
Brad, did
Yeah,
you
I'll
make
make
it? Brad makes the motion.
Second.
Mrs. Butters seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Dwinger, what's your vote?
Aye.
Mrs. Butters?
Aye.
Mr. Plaster votes aye. Motion carries. Dental policy?
Yes, HR has received the new Delta dental policy that was voted in previously, and it just needs a signature from the president.
Okay, do we have a motion for the president to sign the new dental policy?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion signify by, sorry. Hearing none. Let's have a roll call vote. Mr. Dwinger.
Aye.
Mrs. Butters.
Aye.
Mr. Plaster votes aye. Motion carries. Hotel increase.
The auditor's office would like an increase from $130 a night to $149 a night for 2 nights, 2 rooms at the French Lake Resort.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
President.
Okay. Any further discussion? If not, let's have a roll call vote. Mr. Dwinger?
Aye.
Mrs. Butters?
Aye.
Mr. Plaster votes aye. Motion carries. Bobby, anything else?
No, sir.
Brad, anything else?
Not for me.
Mary Ann? Ron?
No.
All right. If there's nothing else, we will adjourn until next week.